Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, a day after the death of Prime Minister Amadou Gon Coulibaly, Ivory Coast's ruling party says that it could consider current leader Alassane Ouattara as its candidate for October presidential elections. Also, several are killed in DR Congo as nationwide clashes break out between police and protesters who object to the man named as new chief of the country's independent electoral commission. And in Kenya, the closure of schools because of coronavirus has left young girls particularly vulnerable. Many counties have seen a spike in post-lockdown teen pregnancies. But first, a day after the death of Prime Minister Amadou Gon Coulibaly, Ivory Coast's ruling party has said that it could consider its current leader, Alassane Ouattara, as its candidate for October presidential elections. After 2 terms in power, Ouattara had said that he'd stand aside and had hand-picked Coulibaly to run to succeed him. But the 61-year-old's death on Wednesday has left the ruling RHDP scrambling to find a replacement before the September 1st deadline. Coulibaly passed away a week after returning from France, where he was treated for a heart condition. The news took many Ivorians by surprise.
The man, known to many as the Lion, has died. On Thursday, Ivorian newspapers printed tributes to the late Prime Minister, Amadou Gon Coulibaly. On the streets of Abidjan, people are still in shock.
C'est une grande perte et nous le pleurons tous. La nation ivoirienne le pleure, y compris la République, les opposants, tout le monde le pleure. Vraiment, c'est quelque chose d'affreux que nous vivons.
La Côte d'Ivoire vient de perdre un grand homme, un technocrate, quelqu'un qui aime bien son pays. C'est vrai que je ne partage pas le même bord politique que lui, mais vraiment face à la mort, il n'y a pas de parti politique.
Gon Coulibaly had been chosen as the presidential candidate for October's elections by the ruling RHDP party. Many members say they are devastated by his loss.
Notre lion royal s'est couché à jamais. En cette douloureuse circonstance, je voudrais saluer la mémoire de ce grand homme d'État qui est un serviteur dévoué de son pays.
Prominent opposition figures from Laurent Gbagbo to Guillaume Soro to Henri Konan Bédié have also paid their respects to the PM.
Son décès nous afflige profondément. Grand serviteur de l'État, il reste un exemple de loyauté et de fidélité dans le respect de ses convictions politiques.
National commemorations to Gon Coulibaly will take place across the country this weekend, with foreign delegations expected to join. His body will eventually be buried in Korogo, the land of his ancestors, in the north of the country.
Well, at least 2 people were killed in DR Congo on Thursday as nationwide clashes escalated between police and protesters. Demonstrators object to the man named as new chief of the country's independent electoral commission. Pro-democracy campaigners accuse Ronsard Malonda of having rigged past elections. The number of dead from Thursday's violence could be higher than officially reported. Our correspondent says that he saw at least 2 bodies in Kinshasa. Clément Bonneau tells us more.
Thousands of supporters of President Félix Tshisekedi's UDPS party had gathered in front of Parliament, defying a ban on demonstrations by the Interior Minister, who had cited the risk of coronavirus infection. They were quickly dispersed by police, who used tear gas and fired live bullets into the air. There were also violent clashes in other parts of the city, with some demonstrators setting fire and vandalizing a local branch of the PPRD party, that is the party of the former President Joseph Kabila. According to authorities, 2 people lost their lives, including 1 policeman. But organizers say that many more were killed or wounded. And I personally saw 2 corpses lying in the streets, one of which was taken away by police. What sparked the protests is a decision by the National Assembly last week to appoint a new head to the country's electoral commission, Ronsard Malonda. Critics say that Malonda played a historic role in rigging elections in favour of Joseph Kabila and his allies, taking part in widespread fraud during the last 3 elections. Now, President Félix Tshisekedi, who governs in coalition with supporters of the former president, has yet to comment on that appointment and approve it. In a cabinet meeting last week, however, he called for calm and urged his partners to smooth out differences before taking any further steps.
Clément Bonero there for us in DR Congo. Well, a look now at some news in brief. Sudan's reshuffled its cabinet in a bid to diffuse mounting public frustration with the slow pace of political transition that's followed the ousting of strongman Omar al-Bashir last year. 7 ministers of the transitional government have been replaced, including those of finance and energy. Most outgoing ministers resigned, although the health minister was fired. The shake-up follows huge protests earlier this month that called for more comprehensive reform. Malawi's president has come under fire for appointing 6 figures who are related to each other to his cabinet. The new Labour and Health ministers are brother and sister. The information minister is sister-in-law to the deputy agricultural minister. And the transport minister is the husband of the deputy minister for lands. Critics say that the abundance of family ties and the fact that 70% of ministers are from the same central region of the country could bring into question the fairness of some appointments. In Nigeria, the death toll from a jihadist ambush on a military convoy in the northeast has risen to 35. Several more bodies were found near the site of the attack by patrolling troops. 30 soldiers are still missing. Extremists attacked troops returning from patrol on Tuesday and escaped with gun trucks, guns and comms equipment at Bulabulin village not far from Maiduguri. Coronavirus pandemic across the continent is picking up to full speed. So says the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. On Wednesday, cases in the region topped 500,000. A day later, they were already at 522,000 and climbing. The real number may be far higher, as testing proved difficult in many countries. South Africa, the nation with the most confirmed cases, says that Gauteng province, where most infections in the country have been logged, is pre-digging graves as a precaution. Well, Central African republics logged over 4,100 cases of coronavirus with 52 deaths. The country's introduced a special task force to try and get more people to stick to the health guidelines that are meant to rein in the spread of the virus. Our correspondents report.
On a motorcycle or on foot, they are recognizable by the fluorescent vests they wear as they patrol Bangui. Recently, police brigades have been enforcing safety measures to curb the spread of the coronavirus. In this minibus, passengers are struggling with social distancing. Police officers have a hard time in enforcing the public wearing of masks and getting people to stay at least 1 meter apart from each other.
On a demandé de porter seulement 7 personnes. Et tous ces passagers qui montent dans ces bus ont droit à mettre leur masque pour mettre fin, pour barrer la route à cette pandémie.
A few meters away, under this covered market, many vendors are wearing cloth masks. However, most customers do not. Trained anti-coronavirus police brigades are trying to get more people to comply with precautions. Hilaire, the head of this unit, says many Central Africans are still skeptical about the risks of the virus, despite the growing number of new infections being reported daily. The military has also been deployed to raise awareness. The country is still being ravaged by an armed conflict. It is also one of the poorest in the world, and there are fears that if the health crisis escalates, it will struggle to respond.
Les centrafricains ne prennent pas conscience de cette affaire-ci. C'est dangereux. Mais à chacun de prendre sa disposition, sa précaution. C'est important pour qu'on en parle nuit et jour.
For now, these brigades are focusing their efforts on the capital as it is the epicenter of the epidemic in the country, facing more than 4,000 confirmed COVID-19 infections.
In Kenya, school closures due to coronavirus have resulted in a surge of teenage pregnancies. The lockdown measures in the country have left the most vulnerable even more so. Our correspondents report.
16-year-old Elizabeth has not gone to school since March, when the government closed all schools to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. Like many other teenagers here, she spent her days looking for money on the streets. She offered sex to a boy for money and is now 3 months pregnant.
Samoro riemba nimondo adhiam kuta pes japuonjno tadhi okayud jonyuol samoro ba ayudo gi to giwuok na magen gionge pesa koro chuno ni nyaka ngadhi dhi ir osiepna cha mimiya pesa no materi skul kod manyiewo gik marwako.
Alone and afraid, Elizabeth turned to her teacher for help. Even though classes stopped, Jane Mbula opened her doors to give her student advice.
Dinanyis jonyuol na ne do dhawo koro mi ok nadwa nyisogi koro amuka nyisogi koro anyiso japuonj.
In recent years, Kenya stepped up efforts to curb teenage pregnancies, which account for 8% of births. Before the pandemic, schools helped with prevention.
When we are with them at school, at least we are helping them because they have a very little time outside there to interact with people. When they got out of school, you have homework to do, you have ABCD to do, so you are busy.
At the moment, help comes only from charities. This one distributes sanitary towels to teenagers and offers advice on sexuality.
I think the most important thing that they're lacking is someone to guide them, someone for them to talk to, someone to be able to direct them between good and bad in the midst of all this confusion that Corona has brought.
The charity helps young people earn money by hiring them to help with sanitation. Kenya's president has called on government agencies to find solutions to the increase in teenage pregnancies before the 6th of August, when he's due to give his next address.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us, and do so again if you can. Take care.